Everybody wants their 808s to slap the taste out of their listener's mouth, especially in sync. But I was absolutely shocked when I discovered what the decision makers were actually listening on to pick who was going to get those big budget sync feeds. Absolutely appalling. So I came up with a 3-phase system called the Boomcraft Protocol that's helped me land an FX placement last week that had a lot of bass in it. And I'm gonna show you how to do the same so that you can start making a full-time living off your music. But before diving into the how, we need to understand the why. In the studio, yeah, your 808s are probably shaking walls and knocking sodas off the table and all that kind of great stuff. But through a phone speaker or a television speaker, that power normally gets lost. Exhibit A and Exhibit B. The reason being, most smaller speakers just don't have the power in their drivers to push the air needed to replicate that big, deep bass feel. So how do we make sure that our 808s hit hard on every device? When you think about slapping, first thing we're thinking about is who we slap it and how we gonna do it. Which brings us to the first step in our Boomcraft protocol: sound selection and texture. Choosing the right sample for your 808s is like choosing the right technique for how you're going to slap with maximum impact. Are you going to do some type of backhand? Is there a wind-up process before you slap them? There's a lot involved, and you have to find the right sound that's going to resonate perfectly with the character of your song, yet still slices through the mix and demands attention. By focusing on this first, you're going to set a really good foundation for how your bass is going to be perceived. Not just in a studio, but slapping hard on every device. I normally do this by checking with headphones first. A, because I don't have a very well-treated room as a bedroom studio producer, and also, I just don't have a sub, so I really need to make sure it's a good sample. I personally like to use anything from Cymatics library of 808 sounds, and I'll also frequently build an 808 from scratch myself through Sublab XL, because most 808s are normally just sine waves anyway. But with the right sample, we're one step closer to making our 808s universally felt, which normally translates to more placements. But even if you have the right sound, it's probably going to get swallowed up in the mix, or worse, sound louder on certain notes than others, especially without phase 2 of the Boomcraft protocol: power. Because the impact of your slap is not just about the action, it's about the force behind it. Too gentle and it's barely noticed. Too hard and it seems excessive. Because at the end of the day, all we're trying to trigger with our music is this. Compression is usually how we do this. It's the tool that we use to help our 808s strike with the perfect amount of intensity consistently the whole time, without overwhelming the mix and sounding like this. I often like to use the Supercharger GT from Native Instruments or the Fairchild 670 because to me, they excel at driving that consistent power in the 808 sound without sacrificing any of the punch. But remember this is extremely important. Over compressing your 808s saps the life out of your bass. So aim for no more than like 3 to 4 dB of compression. Exhibit A and Exhibit B. When this is done right, it connects the listeners on an emotional level. And if a music supervisor hears it in Codex, this could elevate your song from being just background noise that they're listening to the whole time to being the centerpiece of a scene for a sync placement. But now that we have an idea of how hard we're gonna slap, now we need to make sure that it lands exactly when we want it to. Is it gonna be by surprise, or is there gonna be some type of wind up before you strike? We can actually figure this out with the next technique. But before I show you exactly what it is, I'm gonna show you how it works. So imagine you're playing a game of tag with some of your friends, and there's like a base where you put your hand, you can't get tagged, and it's in a different room. So both of you guys are jetting to get to the safe spot. And when you get to the doorway, you both try to go in at the same time. And what happens normally is you're going to get stuck, and now one of you is going to have to be it, which would be like the end of the world. In music, those kids are the 808 and your kick or bass sounds. They're both trying to get through that narrow doorway, which is the speakers. And when this normally happens at the same time in the same volume, they bump into each other, causing everything to sound like a muddy mess. So in order to keep those kids from getting stuck in the same spot, we use a method called sidechain. Sidechaining is like teaching the 808 kid and the kick sound to take turns getting through the speaker. Normally it happens with ladies first, so the kick goes through the doorway first when it hits. And as soon as the kick is finished, the 808 follows right after. This way they never crash into each other and we can hear them both clearly, making the music feel much more alive. Exhibit A. Exhibit B. Always remember, a clear mix sounds much louder than a loud mix. I'm telling you guys, mastering this technique alone can be the difference between your track sounding decent but overlooked versus becoming a memorable slap that leaves a mark. But with all that power, if you don't have an idea where the slap is going to happen, it could totally mean different things, respectfully. Here's 3 different slaps right here. There's a difference between a knee slapper, a slap in the face, and a slap on the back. And knowing how to make that slap sting, that's the art. Phase 3 of the protocol guarantees that the phones or laptop speakers of our listeners are going to shake the same way that the walls do in our studios when we're producing the actual record. And when we're mixing those 808s, we need to have the mentality of that when we slap our listener, wherever you decide, it doesn't need to just hit the person that you're actively engaging with, but it also affects the old lady in the back in the corner. She needs to feel it too. The only way we can achieve this is through stereo width. Now I know what you're thinking. Oh Josh, we need to make sure our bass is kept in mono. Well, it's 2024, okay? And a lot of that stuff doesn't even apply anymore. We need to cover all of our bases, pun intended. This is where the concept of of mono compatibility comes in. For a wider impact with our bass sounds, we need to add a bit of stereo width on the top or higher frequencies, while keeping the low end nice and tight. When you do that, if you're listening on a regular speaker with just mono capabilities, typical TV speakers, the bass sounds really, really strong and not split between two different sides. So it comes out evenly in the middle and then spreads just ever so slightly for those upper frequencies. You can actually see this with a vector scope. Knowing exactly where your 808 is going to hit in a stereo field is going to make your tracks feel more immersive on big systems and small ones. And when you can do that, it's perfect for catching a music supervisor's ears for oodles of sync placements. Now imagine that your slap isn't just making contact in the right spot, but also is leaving that warm, sizzling, tingling sensation that's memorable after like 30 minutes after you've actually felt it. This next technique actually enriches the slap or fundamental tones of your bass, either even numbered harmonics that add this warm, rich, smooth sound, or odd harmonics, which gives like an aggressive grit to your 808s. This effect in music is called harmonic saturation, and it adds this audible presence to our 808s. Most humans have issues hearing exact frequencies from anywhere between 60 hertz and lower. So adding harmonic saturation on top of your 808s is like putting sriracha on a burger. It adds a rich color, making it not just hit, but creates an experience for your active listener. So now the slap isn't just felt, it's remembered. Like if you ate something spicy, it's all about how you leave your mark that way. Now you'll have the most expensive sounding bass in the playlist of tracks that a music supervisor is going through, so that you can start earning more placements because of the quality of your sound. Expensive. But here's the problem. If a tree falls in the forest and nobody's around to hear it, did your 808 really slap that hard? Getting your music in the right hands is brutally important after you've spent countless hours perfecting the Boomcraft protocol and making your music sound expensive. So in this video, I'm going to show you exactly how to find the top players in the industry who help give you the best shot at landing more sync placements more often, so that you can move closer to doing music full time.